And so you can spend a lot of time making yourself and your team an expert in that, or you can leverage an AWS services partner that has the experience, that are focused on excellence within AWS, and they can take up the heavy lifting, all of the complicated, tedious tasks that will take time for your company, so that you and your team can focus on what you're best in the world at, your specific offering to serve your customer. Hey everybody, Ed Meyer from BUILDSTR, sales director.
John Delgado, Cloud Solutions Architect.
So guys, first of all, I'm not necessarily on my A game today, a little under the weather. It's also been freezing here in the Seattle area. It warmed up and it's nice now, but the goal for what we're going to talk about today is to start talking about what does it mean to be an AWS partner. So that's what we wanted to chat about. But before we dive into it, how cold is it there in Texas?
We are all over the place. So
Okay.
I'm in Dallas, Texas, and we had snow and ice last week. Below
Okay.
freezing. That's not normal for us. So the whole
Yeah.
city was shut down. We also had a college football game last week at AT&T Stadium in Arlington,
Okay.
which is kind of south of me, and they had no snow, no ice, and they're only about 45 minutes away from me. And I was like, "What?
Wow.
I'm here trapped in my place, can't even get out." And they were fine.
Are there weird land geographical feature differences between where you're at in Dallas and where the stadium is in Arlington?
No, actually, it's pretty flat here. I'm not technically in hill country. Like
Yeah.
we do have some hill country, but that's not us right now. So
So odd.
this weird how the storm hit us this time. But right now it's 20 degrees outside, so
That's
we're
not bad.
we're at least it's dry. At
Yeah.
least it's dry. The city's
Yeah.
not shut down. You can still navigate outside. So
Yeah.
it's not too bad.
Yeah. 20 degrees is it's uncomfortable if you're out there for a long period of time. But even if you had to like walk like 2 miles in 20 degrees, you'd be a little cold, but you'd be okay. Right?
Yeah, as long as you're prepared for it, like
Yeah.
put a jacket on, some
Yeah.
pants.
Put a jacket on, put your hands in your pockets. You'll be all right. Um, okay. Well, what's your first exposure to a services partner? Let's start there. Like, because maybe we could break down from your perspective of like at a high level, like zoom out even from AWS company and partner. Like, what do you think of when we talk about that?
You know, that's a good question. So I think coming from like even before consulting and everything, right? Like even my first IT job is like, oh, okay, we're bringing outside consultants in, right? And like that was always like, okay, they're going to give us their insight and they're going to help us kind of fast track what we're this project or whatever we're trying to accomplish at the time, right? And now fast forward being the consultant now and being that actual partner, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gives me a better insight on like what we're actually trying to do, right? And it's like now we're actually trying to deliver key results and actually form a partnership, form a relationship with our clients, right? Like we're not trying to just go in there and then do what they want us to do and get out, right? Like we actually want to build value, build relationship, and build a long-term relationship instead of just a short-term, quick in and out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so when I started in consulting from, having been in like the biotech academic world for so long, it's a big world, but you're so myopic. I didn't know any of this. And so I started at a consulting company that was, I think they were one of the first, at least one of the first 10 Tableau partners. Like they were at the original Tableau conference, which I guess was in some random conference room in some random hotel in Chicago, like no windows even, like just they were there from the beginning. Um, so I started out as I was learning about consulting and what it meant to be a services company, knowing that services companies are generally paired or focused on a specific type of work. And lots of times that type of work is paired to a specific company, like a Microsoft and or a Tableau or a Snowflake. And so for me, I kind of grew up learning about consulting and also learning that there are companies that deliver software or software packages or now it's services, SaaS companies, and then people who want to do work with those products. So that at a very high level, like it ended up becoming natural for me as I learned about it. But I wanted to talk about it today because there's been multiple conversations recently where this topic has come up and people have been like, wait. BuildSTR, are you guys a special team with AWS? Are you guys a different company? And so it's really important, I think, to make sure that we can have a very clear delineation of what is the company that we're working with their services, AWS, Amazon Web Services, and what is the work that we do as an AWS partner. So that's what we're here for.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I think over the past few months we've had a lot of questions regarding this, and I think it's gonna be cool digging into it and answering a lot of these questions.
Yeah. So what type of AWS partner are we? We are an AWS services partner. What does that mean?
Oh,
You
is
want to
this
go
you
first?
asking me? Is
Yeah.
um so kind of all over the place, right? So um AWS has a variety of services, right? And we I don't know how you want me to go into this. I'm sorry.
Well, let's just talk about it. Like, I mean, if we were just hanging out and kind of trying to frame it or come up with like some marketing one pager, what are the things that you would want to talk about if somebody so that somebody could understand? Because there's like what are the different service partners? Um there's hardware partners, there's software partners, there's services partners, there are training partners, and then there are resell partners. So those are the kind of the five different partners. But and they reframed this, whatever it was, I think it was about 3 years ago. So let's just zero in on a service partner.
Gotcha. So I really think that we're really focusing on the software side of it, right? Because so I think with AWS and the whole cloud thing in general, right? Like there's not really where you have to focus on hardware anymore. And with there being so many cloud offerings and basically like the SaaS offerings, right? Like there's a lot of different implementations on how you can accomplish what you want with all these different services, right? It's kind of overwhelming in a sense, right? And I think really where we come into the picture is helping guide and steer all these different clients and organizations on how best to utilize these services and how to really expedite and streamline their velocity towards their cloud journey, right? Because
Yeah.
really, it's a whole journey, right? Like you never complete like you never just go into the cloud and you're like, I'm done, right? Like
Yeah.
there's always a maturity process. There's always something better or upgrading or something that you're doing in your cloud journey to further mature yourself in your environment.
All right. And we're back.
And we're back at it.
Okay. So the services partners. You're right. Now, why is it important in this complex journey, the arc of your experience? Maybe let's take a concrete example and talk about the quick start, the landing zone quick start, and why that's important. And then that kind of ties into the well architected partner program and setting things up the right way. So it's like we can diverge. Maybe can you give an overview of the 6 pillars of the well-architected program, why it's important, and then I'll talk about the well-architected partner program, and that's kind of a case study in and of itself.
Yeah. So yeah, so tons of information in that. So I'll try breaking it down as best as I can. But so with the landing zone quick start, right? Like that's following like a best practice. However, there's a lot of complexities in this landing zone, right? Because when we're talking about a landing zone, part of like the well-architected framework is following best practice, security principles, reliability, um, operational excellence, different things like that, right? And so there's a bunch of interlap between these different pillars. However, um, some of those principles include like dividing up your workloads into different accounts, right? So for example, it'd be like a development account, a QA account, and a production account, right? So pretty easy layout there. And so part of what that landing zone would do is you would basically create 3 different accounts, your dev QA production account, and they would be child accounts of your basically like your organizational root or your payer account, right? So it kind of centralizes your auditing, compliance, different things like that. And from that payer account, you're able to set up like your identity and access management groups, different things like that. So users have a standardized way to access said accounts and makes it very easy to provision users and manage their permissions, different things like that. Following least privilege access principles, which is another part of the well-architected framework, right? So like even just starting with this, like it's like, okay, while we're building these implementations and stuff, we're thinking, okay, we're thinking long term for the customer success, right? So we're able to help navigate through the entire process of setting it up right the first time, so we don't have to actually come back and
Mm.
do this again, right? And so I think that is like the beauty of a partner and a partnership long term on what we do. But continuing with that example, right, with the well-architected framework and that landing zone. So now that you are able to provision your users, they're able to access their accounts from a page that we call a landing zone or a start page, which is a really nice page where the user goes to this page and they're able to see all the accounts that they have access to and all the roles that they have access to and set accounts. And then once they go into that account, they can see whatever they have access to. And so um, once they're in there, okay, now they have their dev environment, the QA, their production, all those workloads separated out and everything. Okay. Now, as we're working with clients, we understand, okay, they have these workloads. How do we divide this up? Um, how did their different resources look like? What is their long-term goal? Are they going to centralize onto a platform? If they're going to centralize their infrastructure onto a platform and a platform team is going to be handling like this, does it make sense to create a new shared services account where they, so all this different
Mm.
complex thinking long term, right, is what we take into consideration when we're going through all the design and implementation and thinking with this client, right? And so I think using that as an example is really like the definition of bringing in a partner again, right? Like we're
Yes.
understanding customers' unique circumstances, right? We're weighing different options and implementation standards, and then we're trying to deliver meaningful results. And all through that process, again, building relationships, right? And just delivering those results throughout a time period. And then obviously all the knowledge transfer and teaching the clients how to
Yeah.
use it because uh, throughout the entire cloud journey, you're learning a whole new ecosystem. We're rebuilding an ecosystem. There's all this new terminology and all this weird technology being floated around, right? So like it can be overwhelming. and that's where like we really come in and like white glove it, have that have that like basically like that person, right? Like that
Hmm.
physical representation of what we just manifested, right? Like, because the, the joke is like the cloud, right? It's like, oh, what is the cloud? Well, once we build it, it's like, oh, well, hey, we're your cloud now. Like, we built this. You can talk to us about what we just built, so it can be your cloud, right? And we have that handoff. And I
Yeah.
think that's the coolest thing about what we do. And it's really cool.
Yeah. So, look, you're right. You shared a lot in that window. So let me just break down a couple of things. There's the six pillars of the well-architected framework, and these are pillars that AWS came up with for themselves to develop for Amazon to develop solutions and applications within their environment. And then they went, wait a second, anybody who's using the AWS environment should use these also. So it's really a standard or a rubric that people compare themselves to, and it's never like it's not a one and done. You're constantly working to have alignment with that, and then sometimes new things get reintroduced, and so you have to get alignment to that. And so it's really this iterative process, but it's complex. You went through a lot of things, and one of the things that you talked about is account structure. And so having, the kind of your three basic accounts, I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to that they have large scale applications deployed to their root user account. That means if they're hacked, if somebody forgets a password, if something is done wrong, if some rogue person gets access to it and they just want to go ham and start running up a whole bunch of services, everything's right there in one door. And so the whole goal is to have things set up a certain way based on the well architected framework. But we have a long history of experience there. We've built a quick start that easily deploys the right landing zone structure with all of the accounts, all of the security, all of the different tracking and logging parameters. If you're brand new to the environment, you don't know this. You're going to have to go learn the well architected framework. You're going to have to learn about the well architected tool. You're going to have to evaluate. You're going to have to learn about how to set up your accounts. And you can do that if you want, or you can leverage a partner who understands the six pillars, who understands that you need at a bare minimum three basic accounts, as your bare minimum when you're first starting out using AWS. And so that's the value that a services partner comes in. They've got a lot of experience. They've done this before. And lots of times they've worked with customers just like you. And so they know the shortcuts, they know the optimization. Maybe company or services companies like us have a set of software or scripts that we've already built and refined and used over time, and so we can accelerate your deployment time. So decreasing the deployment time, accelerate your deployment speed, and make sure that things are done right. So that's really where the value of a partner comes in. Lots of experience, very complicated environment, and a lot of value that we bring to the table.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. Because shoot, I think the scariest thing is like once you start scaling and growing super fast is like seeing your AWS bill, right? And like if you're not organized correctly or you're not scaled correctly, it's very hard to figure out where these costs are coming from,
yeah,
right? And so like obviously one of the pillars is being cost optimization. And as we're designing and following the well-architected framework, like having that the different account structure and different observability and monitoring and KPIs, different thing like that, and really being able to figure out where your costs are coming from and having like FinOps basically built into your um, everyday life is a beautiful thing as well. And so again, the six pillars being operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. Which don't expect everybody to remember that, but
comes with time.
it comes with time. And even if you go look at the well-architected framework, there are tons and tons and tons of different best practice requirements and everything like that. And it's a lot of great information. But again, partnering with a services partner like BuildSTR and us um, definitely helps to accelerate and make your lives a lot easier.
Yeah. So at a high level, just summarizing it, there is AWS, well over 200 services that some are as simple as S3, but when you double click into S3, it's actually not that simple. There's very complicated and efficient ways that you can deploy it. And that goes for all of the services. And so you can spend a lot of time making yourself and your team an expert in that, or you can leverage an AWS services partner that has the experience, that are focused on excellence within AWS, and they can take up the heavy lifting, all of the complicated, tedious tasks that will take time for your company, so that you and your team can focus on what you're best in the world at, your specific offering to serve your customers. That's really what it comes down to. AWS is complicated. Use partners like BuildStr to do those complicated things so that you can focus on what you're best in the world at. That's what I
Okay.
got.
Yeah, I think you said it best.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that my voice needs a little bit of a break. And I really enjoyed this conversation today. Thanks, John.
No, thank you, Ed. Appreciate you.
And everybody who listened and watched, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.